The calm before the storm. The sky over Earth was clear. The stars twinkled above in their usual pattern, a peaceful view of the universe. Earth, as always, appeared calm, unaware of the dangers lurking just beyond its atmosphere. But for those who knew, the silence was deafening. For weeks, Earth's brightest minds had been working in secret, preparing for a threat no one had imagined, a threat that came from the stars themselves. In the hidden depths of Earth's military headquarters, the situation was tense. The young commander, Captain Olivia Turner, stood in front of the massive window, gazing out at the stars. She had been called in by the government's top officials for something big. Earth had always been safe, isolated from the rest of the galaxy. But now things were different. The Galactic Empire, a powerful force known for conquering countless worlds, had set its sights on Earth. A soft beep interrupted her thoughts. The communication console in the corner of the room lit up. Olivia turned and walked toward it. A voice came through, tense but calm. "Captain Turner, we need your team ready. The fleet is closing in." The Empire's fleet was massive, their ships designed for domination. It was hard to imagine any force on Earth being able to stand against it. But there was a secret. Earth's scientists had developed a weapon that could possibly turn the tide. A weapon so powerful, so advanced, that the Empire would never see it coming. However, it was still in its testing stages. It was untested in real combat. No one knew if it could actually work. Olivia's mind raced. She had been briefed about the weapon, but even now, standing in the heart of the military's command center, she wasn't fully convinced. Could Earth's new technology be enough to face a force like the Galactic Empire? She didn't know, but she had no choice but to trust in the work of her people. "Captain," another voice interrupted her thoughts. It was General Michael Reeve, an older man, battle-hardened, and with a reputation for being able to assess a situation without panic. "The Empire will strike within the next 48 hours. We have to act fast." Olivia nodded, her expression hardening. "Prepare the fleet," she said. "But I want to keep our prototype ship hidden. We need to be ready, but we're not showing our hand until we have no choice." General Reeve raised an eyebrow. "You're trusting this prototype ship to make a difference." Olivia met his gaze. "It's our best shot. If we wait any longer, we risk being overrun before we even have a chance to fight back." The general nodded, though his face showed some uncertainty. He had seen the prototypes in action, but they were untested. The whole world was relying on something that hadn't been proven in the heat of battle. But Olivia knew something had to be done. She trusted in the science, in the team that had built these ships. If they didn't fight, the consequences would be catastrophic. As the final preparations were made, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming. The calm before the storm was always the most dangerous time. Everyone knew it was coming, but there was nothing they could do to stop it. The Empire had underestimated Earth for far too long, but now they were about to find out just what Earth was capable of. The Empire's fleet wasn't just a military force. It was a symbol of power, a terrifying reminder that no planet was safe from their conquest. They had swept across the galaxy, crushing all who dared to stand in their way. No one had ever challenged them successfully. But Earth was different. Earth had something no one else had, a unique advantage that could turn the tables. The prototype ship, the first of its kind, was humanity's greatest hope. It was built from technologies that blended advanced alien tech with Earth's most brilliant minds. But even though the ship's capabilities were revolutionary, it had never been tested in real combat. Would it be enough? That question lingered in the back of Olivia's mind, growing heavier as the hours passed. She walked out of the command center and made her way to the hangar, where the prototype ship stood ready. It was a marvel of technology, sleek and powerful, but it felt small compared to the massive fleets of the Empire. Olivia stood in front of it, her eyes scanning every detail. The engineers had poured their hearts into this project. It was Earth's best hope. "Ready, Captain." A voice came from behind her. It was Lieutenant Carter, one of the lead engineers. Olivia nodded. Let's hope it's enough. As she climbed aboard the ship, her mind focused on one thing: the coming battle. The calm would soon be over, and Earth would be forced to fight for its survival. The prototype ship was Earth's last hope, and the pressure on Olivia's shoulders was immense. She wasn't just fighting for her country or even for Earth. She was fighting for the future of humanity itself. Outside the hangar, the skies above Earth darkened. The first wave of the Galactic Empire's ships was on its way. The storm was coming, and it would change everything. The question was no longer if Earth could win, but how. And the answer lay in the hands of one ship, one prototype, one chance to show the galaxy that Earth was not to be underestimated. As the engines of the prototype ship hummed to life, Olivia's resolve hardened. She would not let Earth fall without a fight. The battle was about to begin. The Empire's arrival. The calm that had hung over Earth was shattered in an instant. The first wave of the Galactic Empire's fleet arrived without warning, their massive warships appearing from the depths of space like shadows descending upon the planet. Their arrival was a moment of terror for many. The Empire's ships were legendary, large enough to swallow entire fleets whole. They came with the cold certainty of conquerors, the weight of their past victories pressing on everyone they met. At Earth's military headquarters, a flurry of activity erupted as officers scrambled to assess the situation. On the screen in front of Captain Olivia Turner, the vast fleet of Empire warships grew larger, their numbers swelling by the second. They were close now. Too close. Captain, we've detected their command ship, reported Lieutenant Carter, his voice steady, though Olivia could tell he was holding his breath. The Galactic Empire's command ship was a monstrosity, a massive, nearly indestructible fortress that controlled the entire fleet. If it fell, the rest of the Empire's forces would be thrown into disarray. Olivia didn't need to think twice. Launch the prototype ship. Now. Her command was immediate, and the chaos of the command room intensified. As the military personnel rushed to execute her orders, Olivia felt a pang of doubt, though she forced it aside. They had no choice. Earth's survival rested on the success of this single ship. She could only pray that it would be enough. As the prototype ship was launched, it was clear the stakes were higher than ever. The ship's engines roared to life, and it shot into space, a sleek silver shape cutting through the heavens. Olivia watched its departure with a deep sense of both pride and anxiety. The ship was humanity's secret weapon, but it had never been tested in battle. Now, it was Earth's only hope. Far above Earth's surface, the Empire's ships hung like a looming storm. The larger command ship, the Reaver, was the heart of their fleet, surrounded by dozens of smaller but equally imposing vessels. From the outside, it appeared indestructible, a fortress on the edge of space. But deep inside the Empire's military headquarters, their commanders had made one crucial mistake. They underestimated humanity. As the prototype ship neared the Empire's fleet, Olivia could only imagine the horrors unfolding in the Empire's command center. They thought Earth was nothing more than a backwater planet, primitive and easy to conquer. They had no idea what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. The Empire's ships began to open fire, their weapons unleashing a barrage of lasers and plasma bolts. But the prototype ship, agile and fast, dodged with ease. Olivia watched the live feed, her heart racing as the ship weaved through the Empire's assault. It was like watching a dance, graceful and chaotic, as Earth's finest technology outmaneuvered the oncoming storm. The first few seconds of the battle were terrifying, but something shifted. The prototype ship's advanced systems came online, and its weapons, designed to harness the power of both alien and human technology, came to life. Olivia's eyes widened as she watched the ship fire its first salvo. The blast was nothing like anything the Empire had ever seen. The energy beams tore through the Empire's ships with frightening precision, carving through their defenses like a knife through paper. The larger warships, which had once seemed invincible, now burned in the vacuum of space, their hulking bodies torn apart by the ship's powerful weapons. But the prototype was not invincible, either. As it fired, the Empire's response came swift and violent. Their weapons were powerful, and they began to concentrate their fire on the prototype ship, trying to overwhelm it with sheer numbers. The ship shook with every blast, its hull creaking under the pressure. Olivia knew that the ship couldn't take this much longer, but it was doing the one thing that Earth desperately needed. It was buying time. On the command bridge, the tension was unbearable. Olivia paced back and forth, her eyes glued to the screens. She could see the damage the prototype was sustaining. It was struggling, but it was holding its ground. For now. "Captain, the Reaver is locking onto our prototype," one of her officers reported, panic creeping into their voice. The Reaver was targeting the ship, preparing to land the final blow. It was only a matter of time before they would destroy the last hope humanity had. But Olivia didn't flinch. She couldn't afford to. "All hands, brace for impact. Prepare for the counterattack." The prototype ship, battered but not broken, began to turn. It was time to make it stand. Olivia could feel the weight of every decision bearing down on her as the ship accelerated toward the heart of the Empire's fleet. Every second counted. Every move was critical. There was no going back. Far above, in the heart of the Reaver, the commanders of the Galactic Empire watched in disbelief as Earth's ship continued to defy them. This was no ordinary force. This was a planet that had been underestimated, ignored, and dismissed. And now it was fighting back with everything it had. As the prototype neared the Reaver, Olivia prepared to give the order. The final confrontation was coming. The fate of Earth and humanity's future was about to be decided in the depths of space. The storm had finally arrived. But this time, it was Earth's turn to strike. The wrath of Earth. The tension in space grew unbearable. The prototype ship, scared and battered from the relentless assault of the Empire's fleet, now charged forward with unyielding determination. Its weapons powered up once more, energy thrumming in the ship's core like a heartbeat. The Reaver, the Empire's monstrous flagship, loomed ahead, its looming shadow casting a sense of doom over the battlefield. The final clash was about to begin. On Earth, every eye was fixed on the screen. In every command room, every home, every military base, the entire planet held its breath. They were watching history unfold, waiting to see if humanity could survive the fury of an empire that had conquered countless worlds. Olivia Turner, her fingers tightly gripping the armrests of her command chair, felt the weight of every life that depended on the success of this mission. "Captain," Lieutenant Carter's voice broke through the silence, his words sharp and urgent. "The Reaver has locked its weapons on us. They're preparing to fire the main cannon. We don't have much time." The Reaver's colossal weapon, a destructive energy cannon capable of obliterating entire fleets, was charging. It was their strongest weapon, and it would be the death of the prototype ship if it hit. Olivia could see the countdown ticking on the tactical display. Only seconds separated Earth's last hope from annihilation. She took a deep breath, her mind racing with calculations. "Activate the full power of the ship's shields. We can take one shot, but we can't survive more than that." Her orders were immediately carried out, but there was no guarantee it would be enough. The prototype was only one ship against an entire fleet, and the Reaver's cannon was formidable. The ship's energy shields flickered to life, glowing brightly as they braced for the incoming blast. "Prepare for impact," Olivia shouted, her voice steady despite the rising panic in her chest. She could feel the pressure of the entire planet's survival weighing on her shoulders. The Reaver fired. A massive beam of energy shot out, a streak of pure destruction aimed directly at the prototype ship. The light of it filled the screen, bright enough to blind anyone watching. It was an overwhelming force, and for a moment, Olivia's heart stopped. But then, something extraordinary happened. The prototype ship's shields flared brightly, holding back the massive energy blast. The impact shook the ship violently, throwing every occupant off balance. Sparks flew from the control panels, alarms blared, and the ship groaned under the immense pressure. But the shields held, just barely. "We've survived the first strike," Carter exclaimed in disbelief, his voice tinged with awe. "The shields are holding, Captain, but they won't last long." Olivia didn't need to hear more. The prototype ship had absorbed the Reaver's attack, but it wouldn't survive a second one. She knew that. Now, the only option left was to strike back, hard. "Fire the counterattack," she ordered, her voice fierce with resolve. The prototype's weapons came to life once more, glowing with the energy of humanity's last stand. The first shot, aimed at the Reaver's command center, lit up the void of space like a second sun. The blast was immense, a direct hit to the Empire's flagship. For a moment, there was nothing but silence in space as the energy wave from the shot expanded outward, spreading across the battlefield. But the silence was short-lived. The Reaver's response came quickly. The Empire's remaining fleet closed in, launching waves of missiles and energy beams in retaliation. The battle was becoming more chaotic with every passing second. Ships danced in the void, exchanging deadly blows in a deadly ballet of destruction. But humanity's prototype was not backing down. It was not just a ship, it was a symbol of defiance, a symbol of everything humanity had fought for, and it would not go down without taking the Empire with it. The next shot from the prototype ship was even more devastating. It struck one of the smaller Empire ships, sending it careening into the depths of space in a fiery explosion. The blast sent shockwaves through the battlefield, and for a moment, the Empire's fleet faltered. "This is it," Olivia whispered, her eyes fixed on the screen. "The Empire thought we were weak. They thought they could crush us with ease. But they were wrong." The Empire, once so confident in their victory, was beginning to doubt. Their ships, once a well-oiled machine, were now showing signs of distress. Communications between their vessels were becoming erratic, and their attacks were becoming less organized. The prototype ship, despite its damage, had done what no one had believed was possible. It had taken the fight directly to the heart of the Empire. "Captain," Lieutenant Carter said, his voice almost disbelieving. "The Reaver, it's slowing down. They're retreating." Olivia's mind raced. Could it be? Were they really going to retreat? The Empire had never retreated in the face of defeat before. But now they were doing just that. The tide was turning. The battle was far from over, but humanity was no longer the underdog. The Galactic Empire, for the first time, was on the back foot. "Don't let up," Olivia commanded. "Keep the pressure on. We've got them on the run." The prototype ship, battered but resolute, fired again. The blast hit another of the Empire's vessels, tearing it apart in a fiery explosion. Earth's wrath had been unleashed, and it was overwhelming the Galactic Empire. The Reaver, its weapons disabled and its shields weakening, could no longer maintain the fight. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the fleet began to retreat, turning their ships away from the battlefield. The once invincible Empire was now retreating in the face of humanity's fury. As the battle raged on in the cold silence of space, Olivia felt a surge of triumph. Humanity had proven the impossible. Earth had struck back, and the Galactic Empire had been forced to retreat in the face of its wrath. For the first time, the galaxy was forced to recognize humanity's power. And that power had only just begun to awaken. The war was far from over, but Earth had shown its strength, and nothing would ever be the same again. The retreat of the Empire. The battlefield had transformed. What was once an overwhelming Empire fleet now seemed like a chaotic retreat in the face of an unrelenting foe. The prototype ship, the last hope of humanity, had done the impossible. Its weapons and shields had withstood the might of the Galactic Empire's finest, and now the Empire's flagship, the Reaver, was retreating. The fleet, battered and disorganized, had no choice but to follow its lead. Lieutenant Carter's voice rang through the tense atmosphere of the command deck. "Captain, the Reaver is pulling back." The fleet's breaking formation. They're retreating. They're actually retreating. Olivia Turner stared at the tactical display, still struggling to believe what she was seeing. The Galactic Empire, once feared by all, was now retreating in the face of humanity's fury. Earth's prototype ship, though damaged and on the verge of collapse, had struck fear into the heart of one of the most powerful military forces the universe had ever known. But there was no time for celebration. The battle was far from over. Olivia's hand gripped the armrest of her chair as she analyzed the situation. The Empire's retreat was not a surrender. It was a temporary maneuver, a regrouping. The fleet was powerful, and they would not give up so easily. "They'll be back," Olivia muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "This isn't over. They'll find a way to strike again. And when they do, we need to be ready." She turned to Carter, who was still glued to his station. "Get me all the communications we can from the other human forces. We need to know what's happening on every front. We need to prepare for their return." Carter nodded, his fingers flying over the console. "Aye, Captain. I'm pulling in all data now." The bridge was eerily silent as the crew focused on their tasks, their eyes scanning the screens for signs of what the Empire would do next. The Empire might be retreating, but it would not leave humanity's home planet alone for long. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The screens that broadcasted the fight had gone dark for a brief moment. Then they came back with a shocking announcement. The Galactic Empire's fleet had begun to retreat. Humanity's strength had been proven on the galactic stage. At first, people couldn't believe it. How could Earth, a planet that had never even been part of the galactic stage until recently, stand up against the might of the Empire? But it wasn't just the prototype ship. It was something more. It was the fury of a species that had fought for survival for millennia. The resilience, the drive, the will to never give up. It had all come to a head. Across the globe, people stood at attention as they watched the aftermath of the battle unfold. News stations were covering the story live, the images of the retreating Empire fleet streaming across screens. The people of Earth had no idea what was coming next, but one thing was clear: the fight for their home was far from over. Back on the prototype ship, the crew had managed to hold their positions. The damage to the ship was severe. The shields were barely functioning, and the weapons systems had to be rebooted after every shot. But despite everything, they had achieved the impossible. They had driven the Empire's fleet to retreat. "We've done it," Carter said, his voice filled with a mix of disbelief and pride. "But we've barely scratched the surface. They'll be back in full force." Olivia nodded grimly. "We don't know what they'll do next, but when they do return, they will not expect what we have in store for them." The crew exchanged wary glances. There was no time for rest. The prototype ship was barely holding together, but the war was far from over. The Empire would come back, and they would come back stronger. But humanity had made its mark, and in that brief, fleeting moment, Earth had proven that it was not a planet to be underestimated. As the Empire fleet retreated into the cold reaches of space, the crew aboard the prototype ship remained vigilant, knowing that this battle was just the beginning. Their enemy would return with greater numbers, more firepower, and a vengeance unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. But Earth would be ready. The question was no longer if humanity could survive. The question was, would the Galactic Empire survive Earth's wrath when it returned? The stage had been set, and the next act in the war for survival had only just begun. Olivia turned her eyes to the stars, her resolve hardening. Humanity had stood tall against the greatest power the galaxy had ever known. And when the time came, Earth would rise again to meet its enemies head-on. The Empire strikes back. The silence on the bridge of the prototype ship was deafening as Lieutenant Carter's voice broke through the quiet hum of the ship's remaining systems. "Captain, incoming signals. The Empire's reinforcements are on their way." Olivia Turner's heart sank. The brief moment of victory had passed, and the reality of the war was settling back in. Humanity had won the battle, But the war was far from over. The Empire would never forgive the humiliation of their retreat, and they would return with everything they had. "We need to prepare," Olivia said, her voice calm but filled with the weight of the moment. "Get me all the tactical data from the Empire's last movements. They'll be back soon, and we need to know where they're coming from and what they have." Carter's hands flew over the console, bringing up a series of maps and schematics. "They're moving fast. They've regrouped at the edge of the system. Looks like they've called in their reserves. They're bringing an entire fleet of warships, and they're coming for Earth." The ship's commander stood tall, though the fatigue from the previous battle was evident in her face. Her mind raced through their options. Earth's prototype ship had delivered a blow that the Empire had not expected, but now they were facing the wrath of an enemy that would show no mercy. There was no room for mistakes. Every decision counted. "Prepare the ship for combat," Olivia ordered, her voice sharp. "All remaining systems, get them up and running. We need every ounce of firepower we can muster." "And Carter?" "Yes, Captain," Carter asked, not looking away from his station. "Alert Earth's defenses. We need to buy as much time as possible. Let them know we'll hold the line here, but we can't do it alone." Carter quickly sent the transmission. The fate of humanity wasn't just in the hands of this single ship. It rested in the hands of every nation, every fighter, every soldier who had the will to fight. The Galactic Empire had made a deadly mistake, and humanity was about to make them regret it. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The people had witnessed the retreat of the Empire, and now they would watch as their defenders prepared for the counterattack. Governments began mobilizing their forces, gathering everything they could to prepare for the worst. The world, united by the shock of this galactic invasion, was ready to respond. But the truth was, humanity didn't know what was coming. The Empire was unlike any foe they had ever faced. Its fleet was massive, its technology far beyond anything Earth had ever dreamed of. The prototype ship, though powerful, was a single vessel against an empire of tens of thousands. As Olivia stood before the command console, she understood the gravity of their situation. The ship was damaged. The prototype systems were struggling to keep up with the demands of battle. The crew was exhausted. And yet, the ship and its crew had become humanity's last line of defense. "We need to hit them first," Olivia said, her mind focused. "We can't wait for them to attack. We need to strike before they can get organized. We have the advantage of surprise. Let's use it." Her orders were clear. Carter relayed them immediately, sending coordinates to the ship's weapons systems and preparing for their next move. "We'll hit them with everything we have," Olivia continued, her gaze intense. "We're going to force them to rethink this whole invasion. This isn't just about Earth. This is about showing the galaxy that humanity won't go down quietly. If we're going to die, we're going to make them fight for every last inch." Carter nodded, his face set in determination. "Understood, Captain. The weapons are coming online. Shields are charging. We're ready when you are." Olivia turned back to face the stars. In the distance, she knew the Empire's fleet was gathering. They were out there, waiting. But humanity wasn't going to give up. The prototype ship may have been the last of its kind, but it was enough. Enough to send a message to the Empire. Enough to remind the galaxy that humanity would not be cowed. The enemy was coming, but so was humanity's fury. And this time, the Empire was going to pay. As the prototype ship accelerated toward the Empire's approaching fleet, the atmosphere on the bridge was tense. The crew worked in silence, preparing for what was sure to be a battle unlike any the galaxy had seen before. The Galactic Empire had underestimated Earth once, and now they were about to face the full might of humanity's resolve. The ship's engines hummed as the crew braced for impact. But Olivia knew that this fight was far more than a matter of survival. It was about honor. It was about showing the Empire that Earth was not to be dismissed, not to be destroyed without a fight. As the prototype ship plunged into the darkness of space toward the oncoming fleet, Olivia couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. They had nothing left to lose, and that made them more dangerous than anything the Empire had ever faced. The battle was about to begin, and humanity was ready. The wrath unleashed. The calmness of the vast space surrounding the prototype ship began to disappear as the mighty force of the Galactic Empire's fleet loomed in the distance. The ship's crew, battle-worn but resolute, moved with precision. They were prepared. They knew that this would be their final stand. There would be no retreat, no surrender, only an all-out fight for Earth's survival. Olivia Turner, the ship's captain, stood at the command console, her eyes fixed on the oncoming fleet. The sensors confirmed what everyone had feared. The Empire had brought its full might. Hundreds of warships, each larger than any human vessel, were approaching at a terrifying speed. It was an overwhelming force, but humanity had already proven that they were capable of the impossible. "All systems are go, Captain," Carter said from his station, his voice steady but laced with tension. "Weapons are charged. Shields are at maximum. We're ready." Olivia nodded without a word. She didn't need to say anything. The look in her eyes was enough. They had come this far, and they weren't going to let the Empire destroy their home. "Prepare for combat," she ordered, her voice strong. "Lock all weapons on the enemy's flagship. We'll take out their command center first." A surge of energy flowed through the ship as the weapons systems came online. Cannons powered up, and missiles were primed. The ship's advanced AI calculated the perfect trajectory for the first strike. Time seemed to stretch as everyone on the bridge waited for Olivia's signal. "Captain," Carter called again, his voice breaking through the silence. "The enemy is locking onto us. They've noticed us." Olivia's gaze narrowed. The Empire wasn't going to waste any time. They had come for a fight, and they were going to get one. "Open fire," she commanded. The prototype ship's weapons roared to life, sending a wave of energy beams and missiles toward the lead ship in the Empire's fleet. The blast hit its target with deadly accuracy, the sheer force of the attack ripping through the Empire's flagship's shields like paper. The flagship rocked under the impact, and several explosions erupted across its surface. But it wasn't enough. The Empire's fleet wasn't deterred. They returned fire immediately, their weapons far more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. Energy blasts rained down upon the prototype ship, and the crew felt the ship shudder under the force of the attacks. The shields flickered dangerously, but they held. "Shields holding at 65%, Captain," Carter reported. "Good," Olivia said, clenching her fists. "We need to buy more time. Get us closer to their fleet. I want to get in range for a direct assault." The ship began to move, darting between enemy fire, each movement calculated to minimize damage. But the Empire wasn't backing down. Their warships surrounded the prototype, cutting off any escape routes. "Brace for impact," Olivia shouted as the ship swerved to avoid a barrage of missiles from one of the Empire's dreadnoughts. The ship rocked violently, and alarms blared throughout the vessel. The crew gritted their teeth, holding on as the ship lurched from side to side. They were under heavy fire, but they kept fighting. They had no choice. This was the moment they had been preparing for. The fate of Earth, and of humanity, was in their hands. "Target their engines," Olivia barked. "We need to cripple their fleet. If we can't escape, we have to make sure they can't chase us." The weapons locked onto the enemy dreadnought's engine section. Another volley of energy blasts shot toward the target, hitting the vulnerable area with pinpoint accuracy. The dreadnought's engines exploded in a brilliant flash, and the massive ship was left drifting in space, its power systems dead. One ship down, but the Empire's numbers were overwhelming. "We're not done yet," Olivia muttered to herself, her mind racing with every possible strategy. "We've still got a shot." The battle continued, every second a blur of energy blasts, evasive maneuvers, and tactical decisions that could mean the difference between life and death. The prototype ship's weapons fired again and again, taking down one enemy warship after another. The crew's resolve was unshakable. Each victory, no matter how small, fueled their determination. But despite their bravery, the tide of the battle was shifting. The Empire's fleet was relentless. One ship after another fell to humanity's wrath. But the cost was rising. The prototype ship's hull was being shredded by continuous enemy fire. The crew's stamina was tested to its limits. "Captain, we're losing power," Carter warned, his voice strained. "Shields are at 30%, and our weapons are starting to malfunction. We can't keep this up much longer." Olivia's heart raced. They couldn't afford to fail now. The people of Earth were relying on them. The fleet outside was unstoppable, but if they could take out the command ship, the Empire would lose their coordination. "We need to push through," she ordered, her voice full of resolve. "Full speed ahead. We go after their flagship. It's our only chance." The crew nodded, their faces grim but determined. They knew the risks. They had fought this hard, and they weren't about to back down now. The prototype ship surged forward, barreling toward the heart of the enemy fleet. The odds were impossible, but humanity had never been one to back down from a fight. It wasn't just a battle for Earth, it was a battle for the survival of everything they had ever known. And they would fight until the very end. As the battle raged on, the tide of the war seemed uncertain. Yet one thing was clear: the Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity's will to survive. They had thought Earth was just another weak, insignificant planet in the galaxy. But now, they were learning a hard lesson. Humanity, when pushed to the edge, was capable of anything. And this was only the beginning. The final stand. The battle had reached its peak, and the prototype ship now surged forward with everything it had. The last remaining ships in the fleet of the Galactic Empire loomed large, their massive forms dwarfing the human vessel. But Olivia and her crew knew that they had no choice. They could not back down. They had to push forward, to do whatever it took to end this war once and for all. "Captain, the enemy flagship is just ahead," Carter announced, his voice sharp with focus. "We've taken out their escorts, but they've got more firepower than we can handle." Olivia's heart raced, but she didn't flinch. "We have to take it down," she said, her voice firm. "If we destroy the command ship, the fleet will fall apart. We hit them hard enough, and they won't know what hit them." The prototype ship was battered and bruised. Its shields were down to a dangerously low level, and the weapons systems were only firing on half power. But it was still operational, and that was all that mattered. "All hands, prepare for a direct assault," Olivia called out. "This is it. We either end it here, or we don't make it out." The crew nodded, silent but resolute. They all knew the risks. They were not just fighting for Earth, they were fighting for the future of humanity itself. This was the final chance to show the galaxy that Earth was not a weakling to be crushed underfoot. This was the moment when humanity would prove that even the greatest empires could be toppled when they underestimated the power of a desperate people. The prototype ship closed the gap, its engines burning with the last of their energy. The massive enemy flagship loomed before them, its weapons primed and ready to fire. The air was thick with tension, the final seconds before impact dragging on forever. Everyone on board knew that this was it, the moment they would either make history or be forgotten. "Ready the last missile salvo," Olivia ordered. "We're going in full speed." The crew scrambled to get the last of their missiles primed. The final barrage, the last hope they had. They would unleash everything they had on the flagship, and they would make sure it counted. With a final roar of the engines, the prototype ship shot forward, dodging enemy fire as they closed in on their target. The flagship loomed larger and larger, and the crew could feel their hearts pounding in their chests. "Fire!" Olivia shouted, and in an instant, every missile in their arsenal streaked toward the heart of the enemy ship. The flagship's shields flared under the assault, but they couldn't hold. One by one, the missiles tore through the enemy's defenses, hitting their mark with deadly precision. Then the ship shook as the final missile struck the heart of the flagship's command center. For a moment, everything seemed to pause. Then, an explosion rocked the flagship. The shockwave rippled outward, and the massive enemy ship started to break apart, the once invincible vessel crumbling before the might of humanity's final stand. The final stand. The battle had reached its peak, and the prototype ship now surged forward with everything it had. The last remaining ships in the fleet of the Galactic Empire loomed large, their massive forms dwarfing the human vessel. But Olivia and her crew knew that they had no choice. They could not back down. They had to push forward, to do whatever it took to end this war once and for all. "Captain, the enemy flagship is just ahead," Carter announced, his voice sharp with focus. "We've taken out their escorts, but they've got more firepower than we can handle." Olivia's heart raced, but she didn't flinch. "We have to take it down," she said, her voice firm. "If we destroy the command ship, the fleet will fall apart. We hit them hard enough, and they won't know what hit them." The prototype ship was battered and bruised. Its shields were down to a dangerously low level, and the weapon systems were only firing on half power. But it was still operational, and that was all that mattered. "All hands, prepare for a direct assault," Olivia called out. "This is it. We either end it here, or we don't make it out." The crew nodded, silent but resolute. They all knew the risks. They were not just fighting for Earth, they were fighting for the future of humanity itself. This was the final chance to show the galaxy that Earth was not a weakling to be crushed underfoot. This was the moment when humanity would prove that even the greatest empires could be toppled when they underestimated the power of a desperate people. The prototype ship closed the gap, its engines burning with the last of their energy. The massive enemy flagship loomed before them, its weapons primed and ready to fire. The air was thick with tension, the final seconds before impact dragging on forever. Everyone on board knew that this was it, the moment that would either make history or be forgotten. "Ready the last missile salvo," Olivia ordered. "We're going in full speed." The crew scrambled to get the last of their missiles primed. The final barrage, the last hope they had. They would unleash everything they had on the flagship, and they would make sure it counted. With a final roar of the engines, the prototype ship shot forward, dodging enemy fire as they closed in on their target. The flagship loomed larger and larger, and the crew could feel their hearts pounding in their chests. "Fire!" Olivia shouted, and in an instant, every missile in their arsenal streaked toward the heart of the enemy ship. The flagship's shields flared under the assault, but they couldn't hold. One by one, the missiles tore through the enemy's defenses, hitting their mark with deadly precision. Then the ship shook as the final missile struck the heart of the flagship's command center. For a moment, everything seemed to pause. Then, an explosion rocked the flagship. The shockwave rippled outward, and the massive enemy ship started to break apart, the once invincible vessel crumbling before the might of humanity's final stand. "We did it," Carter whispered, his voice breaking with relief. But Olivia wasn't done yet. She was watching, waiting, for the final sign of victory. The remaining ships in the Empire's fleet, seeing their command ship disintegrate before their eyes, began to falter. They hesitated. They had no direction, no leader, no coordination. The prototype ship didn't hesitate. It launched one last, devastating barrage. The remaining ships in the fleet didn't stand a chance. One by one, they exploded in brilliant flashes of light as the missiles tore through their hulls. The Galactic Empire's fleet was decimated. And with that, the battle was over. The enemy was no more. The crew of the prototype ship let out a collective breath, their exhaustion finally hitting them. They had survived. They had won. Against all odds, humanity had triumphed. We did it," Olivia murmured, her voice filled with disbelief. "We did," Carter said, his face breaking into a tired but victorious smile. "We saved Earth." But Olivia wasn't thinking of the victory at that moment. Her thoughts were with Earth itself. the planet they had fought so hard to protect. They had faced the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known, and they had emerged victorious. The message was clear: Earth would never be underestimated again. She turned to face the crew, her voice strong and steady as she spoke the words that would forever echo in their minds. Humanity is no longer a planet to be overlooked. We have proven ourselves, and we will stand tall in the galaxy. The final battle was over, but the story of humanity's strength had only just begun. In the end, the galaxy would remember the day when the Galactic Empire came to Earth, underestimated and overconfident, and found itself torn apart by humanity's wrath. The galaxy would know that Earth had not only survived, but had struck back with a power that no one would ever again dare to challenge. And so, the legend of Earth's greatest victory was written in the stars. Humanity's strength would forever resonate throughout the universe. The Empire had learned a hard lesson: never underestimate Earth, and never forget the strength of humanity.